The only thing that would make this more appropriate is if I had a Whamon or a Whalemon plushie. Sorry, a Whalelord or a Whalemore plushie. I'm assuming they exist, um, or either they're official or you can make one or something. Although a Whalelord plushie would be like a much more appropriate of like a body pillow than like just like, oh, with as big as that thing is. So obviously this is going to be about whales. Whamon. This video is going to be about Whamon, who is described in some of the data entries or the Digidex entries of either in the games or in the actual series as like the Whamon are the biggest Digimon in the digital world, or the biggest being in the digital world. Later on, this is kind of scrubbed because I think there's a few other Digimon, several of them are evil Digimon, or corrupted Digimon that are extremely powerful and extremely freaking big. But I don't remember, and I'm not talking about those ones right now. Maybe in another point in time, but not right now. So Whamon interacts with the Digidestin when they are leaving File Island and on their way to the continent of Server. This is after their friends help them build the raft on File Island and how they're floating off. And they end up getting attacked by Whamon. And he swallows them up. And then they end up in his stomach. And then they see that he has a black gear inside of him. So they work together to destroy the black gear. Whamon, if I remember correctly, is either a Mega or an Ultimate level Digimon. So he is already pretty dang powerful in and of himself. But it's also like, you know, the older that the Whamon get, kind of the stronger that they can become. But, you know, once you hit like your prime, then you hit downhill from there. That'll happen where it gets harder. But what ends up happening is the Digidestin free him from the black gear, and then, you know, since they were in his stomach, he basically erupts, you know, blows him out of his stomach and through his blowhole, and it destroys their raft, and they end up all floating in the water, and he's like, oh, thank you for getting rid of that black gear that was inside of me. I swallowed it a few days ago or a little while ago, and I have not been feeling right since. Thank you for taking care of it. How can I help you? They're like, we can use a ride to File Live to the continent of Server. That would be nice. So he agrees. Whamon agrees. I don't remember if they like ride on his head for a while. They like ride on the top of his head for a little while, which is kind of funny. As because Whamon can fly, which is weird. He's a flying whale. Insert Fantasia reference here. He flies, and maybe that's where they got the idea in Fantasia. Maybe one of the Digimon, maybe one of the like the producers or story people were like watching Digimon at some point. It's like, hey, look, a flying whale. Somebody get me Disney on the phone. I get an idea for that Pines of Rome sequence. Back to Digimon, sorry. Digimon, Disney, Brain, take your pick. But they make their way through. Whamon helps them. They fly in his head for a little while. And he takes them to the continent server, and they ask him, "Hey, do you know anything about these things called tags or crests or anything like that?" And he's like, You know, I actually might know something about that. I remember having to like either he had to like give Devimon a ride or something like that. Or he had mentioned that he saw Devimon hide something underwater once, a long time ago. So they're like, oh, well, can you take us to that? Because, you know, Devimon's the one that, like, hid the tags and crests. They need the tags and crests in order to help Digivolve their Digimon, of course, to the next level. The tags really don't do too much. They're just there to help hold and focus the crest. And then, of course, they have to gather the crest as they go along. But Whamon takes them, and they basically have to go inside of his mouth so that he doesn't swallow. So just picture like Finding Nemo when like Marlin and Dory end up inside of the whale's mouth, and then he like takes them the rest of the way to Australia. P. Sherman Wallaby Way, Sydney, Australia, and does that and everything. And they end up, he takes them underwater and then back up into like this grotto, and there's like a supermarket sitting there, like an underground cavern supermarket. And he's like, well, I saw it. That's, I think, where he hid them. And I was like, okay. And they go inside and they end up having to deal with the Digimon that's called Dromogimon, who is just like a Digimon that has like a giant drill on its head. It again is being controlled by a black gear. They stop the black gear and free it, and then it's like, do you know where the tags and crests are? He's like, I don't know anything about crests, but there's a box over there, like aisle 7 or something like that. And he like, Dromogimon leaves, and then like the Digidestin find the box with all the tags, and they each get their tag and everything. And then they go back onto Whamon, and Whamon takes them the rest of the way to the continent of Server. Later, when the Digidestin return from the real world after they've dealt with Myotismon, they don't really interact with Whamon again, but they come back from the real world and they end up having to then be attacked by the Dark Masters. And Whamon tries to help them escape. Unfortunately, he ends up getting destroyed by Metal Seedramon. But first he had arrived when they're cornered, and he helps them escape, and then he like gives them shelter for a little bit while they're in like the net ocean, which is like the deep net ocean is what it's referred to as. Is like the ocean is in the digital world. And what ends up happening is they end up starting to be attacked by a bunch of these Divermon, who are just another interesting looking type of Digimon that work for Metal Seedramon. Metal Seedramon, because there's Megamon and Mega Seedramon and Metal Seedramon. Metal Seedramon is the higher level. And what ends up happening is Izzy, because he wants to like figure out both like a sonar setup for them to use, he basically like taps in, like they're inside of Whamon, and I actually think they're inside of his stomach, safely inside of his stomach. And Whamon, it's like Izzy's like connected into Whamon somehow, because logic and Digimon. And he has Kari like stand in the middle, because Kari has like her whistle, and he tells Kari, oh, stand in the middle over there and send out the biggest whistle you can. Kari, okay. Stands there. I cannot whistle. That's about the closest you can get me a whistle. And they, she whistles and sends out this sonar wave, and Izzy uses that combined with Whamon to help with getting a good idea of the image of like where all the Divermon are. They end up kind of escaping the Divermon, and Whamon ends up then helping them a bit, and then he ends up unfortunately getting destroyed by Metal Seedramon with Metal Seedramon's River of Power. And he ends up, he's gone, but he saved the digital world. He saved the Digidestined, and this, of course, gives Greymon or War Greymon the kind of the drive to destroy Metal Seedramon. So, losing that friend helped them with that. Then we don't see Whamon again, but he is mentioned when the Digidestined are back at Primary Village, because Whamon hadn't died right away. He kind of slowly died apparently, and he implores the Digidestined to save the digital world, and of course they agree. And of course Mimi makes her little her shrine mounds and everything to represent them, and so she has her she to represent one of them's for Whamon. And then when they go back to when they go back to Primary Village after it's all fixed and everything, and they defeat the Dark Masters and defeat Apocalypse, she's like, well, now Wizardmon and Whamon and Pixiemon and the rest of them can all be reborn. This does come to fruition because we cut to season 2, however much time later. The Digidestined are currently, the newer Digidestined are currently trapped in the offshore oil rig, as I've mentioned in Joe's video and in Cody's video. There's an offshore oil rig that the Digidestined end up in, where they're trying to find a Digi-Egg, trying to find one of the armored Digi-Eggs. They get trapped in there because it's being attacked by a Mega Seedramon, and who's being controlled by a dark spiral. So it's under the control of Ken. and then they send Cody out, and he has to go get Joe. And then Joe tells Izzy, "Oh, okay, I need you to find me a friend." And then they arrive. Cody and Joe return, and they have Whamon with them. And Whamon helps the other Digidestin escape. He breaks through the side of the offshore oil rig, and they climb inside of his mouth, and then they escape. I don't think we get to see Whamon again. I don't think he's involved in Digimon Tri at all, and I don't think we see him in any of like the flash forwards for I don't think we see Whamon again. We don't see him in Digimon Adventure Tri as far as I'm aware, and we don't see him in the epilogue setup for Digimon either, for like where they jump ahead to like 2027. I don't think we see him, unfortunately, although that would have been perfectly fine if we did. But I'm assuming that, he's still, swimming around in the ocean. And then, when there was the reboot for the digital world, he came back, and, maybe didn't remember the Digidestin for a while. And then again, headcanon, once all the the Destined Digimon got their memories back, that the other Digimon got their memories back as well. So he was like, oh yeah, those kids that I was friends with, and then I died, and then they were my friends again, and then I forgot them, and now I remember them again. Whamon is fun. There were like some funny lines that I could find with Whamon, but there weren't very many that I had wanted to use, so I just went with one of the things that they had for like the dex entry for it, because Whamon's kind of fun. If you had a Whamon as your partner, that would be an interesting thing to have a Whamon as your partner. I don't know exactly how that would work. You'd have fun, that's for sure. Not really too much else to say about that with Whamon or anything like that. So that's what I have for Whamon. I hope you enjoyed the video. I thank you very much for watching, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. This giant Digimon inhabits the deep net ocean. It is the largest being in the digital world. Its abnormal amount of data makes it impossible to run on normal computers, thus explaining its gigantic size.